there was a very good turnout. There was a good turnout for her service, and but overall, it was, you know, services are moving and touching and sometimes more emotional than spiritual. But it was, I'm very glad that we went and we saw people that we had not seen in a while. And Andy and Nancy have been estranged for many years. It's been a sad situation.
Oh.
But Andy has sold his business and moved to Florida. You know, he's got a huge business. Can't remember the name of it. Green is the name of it.
True Green.
Yeah, it's been very successful.
Yeah.
And
it's so big, I still get ads for it on my computer.
Yeah, well, he's no longer a part of it. He made enough money he can move to Florida and retire, I guess. So anyway, I just wanted to report on that. And Tim has been very helpful to Nancy in recent years.
Good.
And his kids were there, and it just goes on and on. There's great grandkids now that it's hard to keep track of everybody. So, well, I don't want to belabor that, except that, you know, it's a little bit sad because they were a part of the West Newton Quaker community for so many years.
They were, yes.
That's all. So we can go back to the Iowa caucus or the weather, whatever you want to do.
No, thank you for sharing that. Andy was the only, Andy and Lori Miller were the only other young people when Maria was a young person at West Newton, and they were pretty good friends.
I remember when Andy was born, it was because it was after Beth and I were married. It was after you and Dale. It was in 1968. I remember the year, a Vietnam year.
Mm-hmm. Dan's wife, who became his wife later, I found a folder full of letters that she had written from Vietnam. She went with a group from American Friends Service Committee, and she was there, I think, for 2 years doing prosthesis and physical therapy for people who needed that. And
who was that?
Dan's first wife before they were married. Mm-hmm. He didn't know her yet, but I found a whole bunch of letters that she had written to her parents that Dan didn't even know we had here. So we've been typing those up for the kids and grandkids. They're pretty dramatic.
Well, that's nice. But yeah, very touching, I'm sure.
Yeah. Megan, we're waiting to hear from you an update about Dick.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm, you know, it's always a few more bumps in the road. In the process, prior to going to this rehab hospital, he's in acute rehab hospital, which has a higher level of nursing and medical care available than at a like skilled nursing facility type rehab. And and the rehab part is harder. Like he has to do 3 hours of rehab a day. So he's been doing okay. And you know, he's walking. He still needs the walker. He is so far behind of where he was when he came out of even just day one after hip surgery. But you know, he's getting there. He's he's game. But yesterday they told me that his hemoglobin had been declining again. I sort of thought we had that stabilized. Like nobody told me he was declining again. So he had hit what turns out to be his 5th unit of blood yesterday.
Oh.
And that's super concerning to me. And you know, he's been making a big effort to drink water, which he doesn't like doing that much, but he does because they tell him it's good for him. And they still have a hard time getting a stick in him, and his blood pressure is kind of on the low side. And none of it is like, oh my God, send him to the emergency room stuff, but it's concerning. And I you know, when I hit something concerning, I immediately panic. So not a good response to the stimulus, but I can't, I've gotten so, like, so many things have been so horrific through this whole process that I can't seem to hold on to my equanimity anymore. I just get very anxious. So, and I don't want to do that around him. You know what I mean? But, so I'm trying hard to have faith and to, you know, because the thing is that what I have faith is that it's all going to turn out the way it should, or the way it was supposed to be, but it may not be the way I want. And that attachment to an outcome, which, you know, pretty natural. I'm crazy about the guy, but you know, that no one guarantees a specific outcome. The only guarantee I have is that God loves me. And as I sent Lynn has been nice enough to send some emails, which makes me feel nice. That says, you know, I said to her that, like, why am I expecting to get, you know, pray and get an outcome that I want when I can only imagine what the people in Gaza are praying for and not getting? And just, you know, I have no answer to that. Just to know that all I can do is lean in as much as I can. This is not good for my concentration either. So it's not like I'm doing some earnest long-term, you know, like settling in. Every morning I spend in the weekday, I do like as close to a half an hour as we can with Jeremiah and Beth. And that's a huge comfort to me, but it's been a struggle to stay connected, or to even try to stay connected to God at this moment. Not because I have any, you know, I'm not mad at him, but I'm just struggling to have concentration generally. So,
Who are Jeremiah and Beth?
you know, Beth Kalea and Jeremiah Dickinson.
Yeah.
They were both, you know, they were members of Wellesley Friends Meeting, and now they moved up to Dover, New Hampshire. So we do a half an hour prayer and meditation on the phone every morning. But
Good.
I've known them forever.
Sounds like we need to keep you in our prayers as well as Dick. And
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing so much. It's easier to pray for people when you have a little better idea of what's actually going on. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
you have an update on Brent and Nancy too.
Yes. Well, they both have COVID, and Brent is worse than Nancy. I talked to Lisa yesterday, and she's staying over there and taking turns with some other cousins. Lisa's their daughter. And she said Nancy fell again and didn't hurt her, except she's got a black eye. So they need to be kept in our prayers. I'm so worried about both of them. And then I've got my stepsister Debbie and her daughter Christy have breast cancer.
Oh.
And Christy, a couple of days ago, had a mastectomy. And Debbie is going to go in soon and find out what they're going to do with her. So if you could keep my family in your prayers, I would really appreciate it.
Oh, yes.
Are there other people we need to remember today? Well, Brent was supposed to be our worship leader today, and obviously is not up to doing that. So we're just planning on having unprogrammed worship, and then keep all these people in our prayers. We obviously have a lot to pray for today. So if you want to mute yourselves, and then unmute yourselves if you feel led to speak. We would really appreciate hearing whatever God lays on your heart this day. One of the concerns that I have too is the homeless people that Norma and I help serve at the Goodwin Center. I don't know where they are at this point, but I'm feeling a heavy heart when I think of them, and I always feel grateful for the things that I have. But when I look around and realize that I have a warm home and things like that in times like this, it makes me especially grateful. So I hope that we'll remember homeless people who are in places where life is really ugly, like Gaza, as Megan has already mentioned. We have a lot to pray for this morning. So feel free to share if God lays something on your heart. We would appreciate hearing from you.
I was wondering if Norma might have an update on the people from the Goodwin Center.
I really don't know any more than Lynn about them this morning. I do know that the insurance at the Goodwin Center does not allow people to stay overnight there. So that is not a possibility for homeless people to come in and spend the night. I don't know whether it makes a difference if there is a Goodwin Center employee or personnel that is on location. Could they stay? I'm not sure. That's a good question that I will need to ask Brittany.
Wanted to tell Norma, I think you were on when Lauren spoke about the memorial service for Nancy Neer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, could you tell me about it? Because I was not online at that time.
Unmute, Loring.
Well, I shouldn't repeat too much because everyone's heard what I said except you. But it was a very nice service for Nancy Neer, and her former husband Chuck was there, which was in doubt until the last minute because he is in a wheelchair now, and he doesn't. No one likes to admit, I guess, when they are in a wheelchair and are very dependent on other people for help. And but mentally, he was just fine. He asks about the West Newton building and remembers fondly the years they were at West Newton, and trying to add things that I didn't say earlier. Nancy's son, Tim, helped run the memorial service, and he spoke very lovingly of Nancy and how close they had become, especially, maybe this is my interpretation, since Andy is no longer in the picture the last few years. Andy has sold his business, very successful lawn business, and moved to Florida. And Shelley was there, and there was a church that Shelley and her husband attend where the service was. Nancy was 87 and had various health problems the last few years. In fact, we were concerned for that family that Ruth, Beth's mother, might outlive Nancy because Nancy had so many health issues, but she didn't by a couple of years. Ruth Albert has now been deceased for a couple of years. But anyway, it was really good to see those of the Nears that were there and to catch up a little bit. And once again, reminded of how dissolution of families or divorce affects more than the two people that split up, because you don't get to see the people that you become fond of over the years. So the traditional Quaker meeting for marriage and weddings is a good one. Not that there aren't going to be any divorces, but there might be fewer if people had to go through a process. I think Nancy and Chuck were married right out of high school. That's enough of that.
when we've named so many friends that we know who need our loving care and our prayers, and we've just barely touched on all the places in the world that need our loving care and need God's presence, I find it easy to get mired down in hopelessness and helplessness. But a spiritual practice that I find very helpful is gratitude. I try to take a moment each day and look around me and name things for which I am grateful, and actually say thank you to God. It doesn't solve any of those problems, but it changes my perspective from negative to positive. As we move on this morning from our meeting for worship, I challenge each of you to look around yourselves and find things to thank God for, because we all have them, and it's easy to forget sometimes that we do. One of the things I'm grateful for is this group, and the fact that even though we can't be physically together, we can be together. I thank each of you for taking time out of your busy day today to be here with us, to spend time with God together, and Godspeed as you go your way from here. It's good to see you this morning. Some of you I know need to be other places, or at least I know normal Sunday you do. I don't know whether you do today. No. And we have plenty of time. If you want to unmute and visit some more or whatever, we can certainly do that as well.
It was interesting. When I was making coffee and feeding the cats, I had on, I think it was called iTown. It's a religious show that's on every Sunday morning. And the minister was saying, when things happen, don't blame God. It isn't God's fault. And he also said, you need a positive attitude. The way you think makes all the difference. If you're thinking negative, you're going to put yourself in a negative position. And if you think positive, it's just the opposite.
Well, Dan and Sylvia, we will be keeping you in our thoughts and prayers the next few days, and hope you get out of Iowa and to a place much warmer sometime soon, and that you're able to do that safely.
Our plan is to be at Dave's by tomorrow afternoon and be there for a couple days, and then fly to Belize on Thursday. If things go the way they're planned, we've changed our tickets 3 times so far.
I just want to thank all of you for being here and for listening so patiently to all my little woes, and I feel really helped, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Many of us have walked your path or are now, so we can be there with you in spirit, even if not physically.
And as we learn more about Brent and Nancy, will someone give us that information along the way?
I will do that. Sure.
Maybe an email
Did
sometime during the week.
Did you say what Brent's illness is like? Is he feverish and coughing? And
She just said he was coughing a lot, and he was in worse shape than Nancy was. So Lisa didn't go into a lot of detail, but I'm sure I'll hear from her today sometime. So
okay.
I'll try to pass that on to everybody.
Thank you.
And Megan, you keep us posted on how Dick is doing too, please.
Will do. Will do.
Anybody else got anything to share, or are we ready to mosey on?
Well, have safe travels going to
Thank you.
Belize.
Thank you.
I'm sure it'll be better weather than where you are now.
It's really pretty right now. Wind has slowed down and it's actually calm out there and very sunny.
We think we have problems because we can't get out of here. They're supposed to come at 2 and pick us up. But it's like 20 degrees below, and I just see that the first loader that went out to clear the road, he came back in sputtering like his fuel's all gelled up. My brother's supposed to be coming from the other end of the road. He may have the same problem, so we may not get out.
Couldn't be terrible if we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.